world. So the middle world is where work gets done. So obviously that's the brewery. One thing I always like to point out is the stainless steel pipe that goes along the wall and ceiling, and that's a transfer pipe. And that's for hopefully when we're so busy, next week maybe, that we need to be brewing while people are in here. And rather than dragging hoses across the floor, we'll be able to plug into either side and transfer beer from the fermenters to the serving tanks. I also like the poetry of it because as people walk into the brewery, they'll literally be walking under the beer. So that's a nice feature. Our brewery is set up a little bit differently than Western European style breweries, where normally you might see a 3 or 4 vessel system back there. We have 2 vessels. The furthest one is a hot liquor tank. The next one is a highly customized piece of equipment. It is a combination mash tun boil kettle. And I describe it as midway between a brewer's mash tun and a distiller's mash tun. We basically designed it specifically to be able to work with corn because when making chicha, traditionally you boil with the grain still in there. I tried it both doing that and the kind of Western European style of mash separate from boil. Flavors come through much more strongly when you boil with the grains, so we built a system that allows us to do that. The theory on it is you mash for 90 minutes, turn up the heat, start the boil. The practice is much, much more complicated, and we are now on 9 times that I've tried to destroy that piece of equipment. So 9 and counting. We'll see what happens. Then we have a heat exchanger, which we designed that to make sure that we recycled the water. So the heat exchanger will use city water to cool the wort from 203 degrees down to 70 for fermentation, and then we recycle that water back into the hot liquor tank so that we can use it on the next brew, because this is Colorado and beer is for drinking, water is for fighting over. So gotta make sure we maintain our scarce resources. Over here we have the fermenters. We use very strange and unique yeasts and bacteria in each of our beers, and so we keep separate fermenters for each type of product. So number 3 there is chicha, number 2 is pulque, number 1 is tepache. And that's obviously where the magic happens.
So you're creating fermentation with cultures that you're nurturing?
Yep, and I call it pseudo-spontaneous because we cultivate the bacteria from the ingredients that we get from Mexico and Peru, and we use those, and then we use a yeast profile that mimics what would spontaneously be in the air in the jungles of Mexico and mountains of Peru. So we use some different methods.